welcome everyone to this June 10th, 2020 City Council work session. Thank you for joining us in this remote meeting format we're using in response to Governor Brown's Stay Home, Save Lives order. This format enables the City Council to meet and take care of business while keeping its members, staff, and the public safe. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcasts and meeting materials webpage. And as always, other avenues of communication with me and City Council are available, including email, which many of you had discovered robustly, and voicemail. Thank you again for joining us. And with that, we are ready for our first item on the agenda, a work session on star voting. So, Manager?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I believe that Brooke is going to just jump in here and start this presentation today. You've gotten a few emails about this one too.
Right.
That was subtle, Sarah.
All right, there. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Beth Forrest and I are pleased to be here today in response to your approved work session poll to discuss the star voting system for Eugene, including the potential to eliminate the primary for the offices of Mayor and City Councilor. To begin, I'll quickly review our existing process for you. Under our current process, candidates for mayor and city councilor appear on the primary election ballot in May of a regular election year. Voters cast their vote for one candidate per seat. If a candidate receives a majority of votes cast for a position in the May primary, only that candidate's name will appear on the November general election ballot. If no candidate receives a majority of votes cast for the position in the May primary, the two candidates who receive the highest number of votes will appear in the November ballot. In the example you see here, under our current system, out of the 5 candidates, Ben and Carmen received the greatest number of votes and neither received greater than 50%, so both would advance to the runoff in the November general election. Before we move on, it may be helpful to briefly address the concept of vote splitting and the spoiler effect. In this example, let's assume Carmen and DeAndre have a similar base of voters, and had DeAndre not been in the race, his 14% would have gone to Carmen, giving her a 51% majority in the win. But DeAndre has entered the race and claims 14% of her votes. In our current voting system, DeAndre hasn't officially spoiled the vote because Ben still can't win the primary with less than a true majority. Both Ben and Carmen will advance to the general election, where Carmen has a chance to earn votes that may have gone to DeAndre or other candidates in the primary. And Ben can also attempt to draw votes from Eric, Abby, DeAndre, or Carmen's voters. So in a current November general election runoff, voters can cast their vote for one of the 2 candidates, and the candidates who receive a majority of the votes will win. Using the star voting system, the May primary would be eliminated for the offices of mayor and city councilor, with these candidates voted on only at the November general election. It's simplest to describe the star process in 2 steps, the first being score. Voters would be given a ballot like the sample here, on which the voter can give each candidate a score from 0 to 5, 0 being the lowest score possible and 5 being the highest score possible. If a voter does not assign a score to a candidate, as with Eric in the example here, that candidate would receive a 0 from that ballot. As a reminder, these are scores rather than rankings, so a voter could give the same score to more than one candidate, as indicated on the sample ballot with Abby and Carmen. And on a ballot where there were 6 or more candidates scored, this would naturally occur. The scores that each candidate receives from the ballots would then be totaled, and the 2 candidates with the greatest total scores would be selected as finalists for the automatic runoff, as you see here with Carmen and Ben on the scoring round. In the second step, the automatic runoff, which occurs using the same ballots during the same general election, This round only examines the scores given for the two finalists, since the other candidates were defeated in the first round. A vote will be considered cast in favor of whichever finalist was given the greater score between the two on a single ballot. On this ballot here, the voter gave Carmen a greater score than Ben, so this vote is cast for Carmen. If this voter had scored Ben and Carmen the same, that would be a vote of no preference, and a vote would not count toward either candidate. The finalist with a greater number of votes cast in their favor in the runoff round wins the race. So in this case, it would be Carmen. When thinking about a potential implementation of the star voting system in Eugene, three important considerations are the cost, the necessary education and outreach, and the potential implementation timeline, which I'll walk you through. If the city of Eugene were the only adopter of the star voting system, we anticipate that the city would bear the full cost of implementation. It would be necessary to develop and purchase a new ballot and tabulation system, which would be used in addition to the existing system for other local jurisdiction offices. The introduction of any new system of voting and tabulation requires testing and certification by a nonpartisan independent lab, which is then ultimately followed by testing and certification by the state. These testing requirements, which have the potential to be iterative, make it difficult to predict the cost and timeline for implementation. The new star voting software subscription costs would be ongoing. Additionally, a public education and outreach campaign regarding the new voting system would have associated expenses as well. As I noted in the AIS, there are no known US municipalities, counties, or states using the star voting system at this time. Benton County, Oregon approved ranked choice voting back in 2016 and will use it this November for any commissioner race with 3 or more candidates. Their measure had included a provision that their new voting system would only be implemented after the county had received up to $200,000 from the state of Oregon or other sources, and would be used at the first general election that was 12 months or more past the date when funding was secured, which they ultimately secured through a state pilot program. In speaking with Benton County, we also learned that the developing of the new system and the public education campaign in particular required a significant amount of staff time. If through the STAR system, the city were to eliminate the May primary for mayor and city council races, a voter pamphlet including the candidate statements could be produced for the November general election. Currently, a voter pamphlet is only produced for the November general election if there are contested races or if there's a city referred ballot measure. While the May primary election for mayor and city councilor would be eliminated with the STAR system, eWeb elections and city measures would continue to be held during a May primary. City code requires a voter's pamphlet for any city referred measure and directs the city manager to publish a voter's pamphlet containing candidate statements unless the council waives the requirement. Currently, voter pamphlets are around $25,000 per election. As with Benton County's new voting system website, which I've shown here, an education plan for Eugene voters and candidates would be necessary to educate voters on how to use a new voting system. The city of Eugene would expect to provide pre-election outreach and education for voters, as well as education for candidates regarding the new process, which may affect campaign tactics. We would anticipate providing both printed and online instructions, all with an eye toward accessibility and equity. Additionally, we may need to explain 2 different voting methods if the ballot contains both star voting for the mayor and council races and also candidates for other offices using the traditional voting method. Again, all of this would take significant staffing resources in addition to the material expenses. If the STAR measure were to pass in Eugene, these are the steps that would be involved in implementation following the certification of election results in November. We would enact the charter amendment and begin the code change process. This would include a public hearing and an action on the code amendments. We would then begin identifying software providers to develop the new ballot, tabulation, and verification system. Then we would work through the testing and certification by the independent lab with the state. Once this is completed, we'd be able to determine when the first election using the new system might occur and plan the candidate and voter education campaign accordingly. Again, it's challenging to assign a more precise timeline due to the iterative nature of the software development and testing process, as well as the need to provide an adequate public education campaign once the voting system is certified and can be used. So in summary, there are 3 key takeaways. The cost of implementation is difficult to estimate at this point, but we anticipate that the City of Eugene would bear this cost. Education and outreach would be important to ensuring voters understand the new process, which will require staffing resources and adequate time to do so. And an implementation timeline is uncertain due to the software development and testing requirements. With that, I'm happy to provide several potential options for next steps and answer any questions that you may have.
Sorry, I was slow to unmute myself. I have Betty and then Mike in the queue.
Thank you. Once again, one more time I got ahead of Mike. I think. That sounded to me like an argument against star voting, which I think is not appropriate at this time. I think that the people want a right to vote on it, and we can educate them while during a campaign, while they're deciding whether to vote for it or against it. But I think that what we just got was a list of all the problems involved and not the benefits. And I think there are plenty of people who are ready to tell us about the benefits. And the least we can do is give people a chance to say whether they want it to happen or not. And then we figure out how. We figured out, our esteemed city manager has figured out how to do a lot of things recently, but I'm sure that she's up to figuring out how to implement star voting with some help. And I strongly urge us to give people a chance to vote on whether they want it or not. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily endorsing it or not endorsing it, but give them a chance. Thank you.
Okay, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. For me, this question boils down to whether or not us referring the question to the voters is the just thing to do. I'm not certain whether I'm in favor of this system or not yet. I'm not really sure. I tend to be not crazy about the idea, but I haven't studied it deeply enough to know that. For me, the question again is only, have they earned the right to be on the ballot? And my first response there is, I think they've proven clearly that they had enough signatures of the people of our community to put it on the ballot. Now, there are 2 questions that I have about its outcome, but they're really more about whether or not it's a good idea to do it than whether or not we should put it on the ballot. The first was the issues around cost, and I have to be honest with you. I appreciate your report very much, but I'm kind of disappointed that we couldn't get at least some kind of ballpark of in Alan's favorite term, the jaws of uncertainty here of what the costs may be there within some kind of range, because this is a brand new system that we'd be running instead of the county, because if we're putting it on our ballot, we're the only ones with the ability to do that. So I really wish there was more information you could give us about that today, number 1. And number 2, I have some concerns about how this will affect turnout. I know that the Independent Party of Oregon used a similar system recently and had a fairly massive decrease in participation of voters. So, I mean, it was like 0.5%, where previously it was, they had a regular voter turnout in 2018, of double-digit sort of response, and it was like a 0.5% response when they used star voting. So I would be real hesitant. I have some concerns with the voters approving a thing that would dramatically lower voter participation because it was confusing or whatever reason. So I'm a little torn. I think they've earned the right to be on the ballot. I'm just concerned about the effects of it. And certainly if it's an extremely high cost to do, I don't think we're in a position to be able to afford that behind everything else that's gone on this year. So I really, really could use some further information there, even if you have wild guesses. Thanks.
Sure, I'm happy to jump in on that for sort of general estimates. In terms of what we pay for a special election where we would bear the full cost, that can run in around the $250,000 range. As you looked, as I mentioned when I referenced Benton County, they knew that it was going to cost at least $200,000, which is why when they prepared their measure, they wrote in the provision that would require them to secure the funding before moving forward. So that the $200,000 was, I think, their estimate. One thing that's important about that to know about their process was that they were using ranked choice voting, which has been utilized before. So they were able to take advantage of some efficiencies as it pertains to the software and programming, because they could utilize other programs as well. So those are factors for sure. Because this is for us, for STAR would be a completely new system. It's hard to tell what that software adjustment would be. When we consulted with the county on if they like what a typical cost would be, when they make software updates or modifications, they say that it can run in the 6 figures. In the conversation with Benton County, they did highlight, so on top of the dollars that they secured, just the amount of staff time that it cost. The public education campaign was a major factor. They wanted to make sure they had adequate time in the community. One thing that they actually highlighted right now is because they're coming up to an election, one thing they hadn't anticipated was COVID impacting their outreach. And so they had planned to do in-person fairs where people could use a tablet and kind of experiment with the ballot system. And that's, run into some challenges right now. So they're trying to plan a work around that. So we do have these sort of general figures. But again, because we would have to go out and secure a contractor to do this system, it's hard to estimate what would be available for a new system like STAR versus something like ranked choice voting. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. It does. And Mayor, if you'll put me down for a second round, I have another issue I want to bring up about it. Thanks.
Got it. All right. Alan, Jennifer, and then Claire.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I wanted to express my appreciation to the people that have been working on this hard for the last several years. Actually, I appreciate their passion and all the work that they put into doing this. Getting down to some of the things that Mike talked about and the initiative petition. The initiative petition is a statewide rule, and it's administered by done by the state. I think it's under ORS. Correct me if I'm wrong, city manager and city attorney, and it is administered at the county level. The city has very little impact on how to do this and what happens. And there have been many groups that have been denied because they didn't have enough signatures. And this process has been in place for a very long time. I don't even, as long as I can remember. So having a problem with the petition initiative petition process and the verification process really should be taken up at the state level and with the county, not with the city of Eugene. I don't know about, I don't think it's our business to put things on the ballot they didn't qualify. Lots of people end up in that position. So having said that, I think the problems that I have with this is I'm trying to figure out what the problem we were trying to solve is. I don't necessarily think our process is broken at all. I think it works actually fairly well. So I'm struggling with what's the problem that we're trying to fix. And then secondarily, this is really complicated. It's very complex, and I'm worried about the cost, which which we have much higher priorities to spend six-figure sums on, $250,000 on than this, and that's not probably including the education campaign it takes to do that. And again, the county runs this thing; it's not the city. So how we need to be in concert with our partners, and that hasn't been addressed at all. And then finally, I think this is new and untested from having a couple of minor successes where it actually worked and people weren't completely confused isn't good enough for changing our whole system. I don't feel like we should be a guinea pig or be an experiment here. I think there's a lot of unintended consequences here. Swapping one set of problems for another set of problems doesn't really help me a lot. It's gameable. Chris Pryor was telling me about some issues there, and so I see little, if any, benefit by changing. I guess I just don't see it. So I'm actually in favor of no action, but I'd be willing to talk about it. But that would be a work session off probably next year, because I think we have so many higher priorities than this, especially for our money, than going forward with this. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, first I want to thank Mike for bringing up the issues around cost. I am also concerned, especially since it seems like we only have big kind of general figures about what this is cost. But I mean, obviously, if the voters voted for this, we would find a way to pay for it. And I am sympathetic to the situation that the petitioners find themselves in. But the question to me today is not what I think about star voting. It's what I think about sending something to the voters and what should be the threshold for doing that. I think that if we send something, it is, and whether it's intentional or not, we are putting our support behind that. And I think therefore we need to be very careful about what we send to voters. And for me, this, while very interesting and maybe something we choose to do in the future, doesn't reach the threshold of what city council should be sending to the voters. And so it would be my preference, and I will be voting for having no action. I do think it would be appropriate, like Alan mentioned, to sometime in the future, maybe have a work session where we look at this a little more closely and get more information, but it's certainly not one of my priorities at this time.
Mayor, Betty's had her hand up for quite a while.
I've got her on the list. She was in the first round, and I've got her on the list for the second round. So Betty, you're there. I've seen you, but thanks for the prompt, because sometimes I miss. And so now it's Claire and then Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize. I'm having some trouble with my video for some reason today. So I appreciate the thoughtful comments so far. Like Mike, I have mixed feelings about, what's our appropriate role here and what kind of action we should take. So I'm still very much on the fence. I, many months ago had an opportunity to meet with one of the chief petitioners on this, on the ballot measure. And, I found the information she shared with me to be pretty compelling in terms of the fairness of the system and the idea of giving voters greater ability to reflect their choices amongst a variety of candidates. But in recent days, we've also received some additional information about some of the challenges in terms of practical application. And my understanding is the Democratic Party was using this for, I think, to pick delegates, and these are very active voters and vote often, and they were experiencing confusion about how they should approach the system. So, I think I also think that if we did choose to refer this to the ballot, we would absolutely need to include some, as specific as possible, information on what it would cost the taxpayers to implement this system. I don't recall that the original ballot measure included any information of that kind. And so people were really voting blindly, not understanding the impact this would have on our city budget. So, you know, we are in a new time from where we were when I originally met with the Star Voting Advocate in terms of our city budget. And I am reluctant to, you know, I wouldn't pass this just as a council because of the budget implications. And if we are going to refer it to the ballot, it absolutely must have as close to realistic estimates as possible in terms of what it would mean in, as an obligation we would have to fund. And I'll say I was not able to review the most recent information that was sent in the last couple of days from some of the advocates because of all the other pressing matters we've got coming into our inboxes. So I am feeling a little unsure of where we would go, but at this point I would tend to agree with Councillor Ye's comments in general. Thanks.
Okay, Chris.
Thanks. I've had a chance to talk to a number of folks on both sides of the issue. And so this is one where even though I've talked to folks and I've actually looked up information about it, I'm still wanting to be as open as I can. And so the questions I have are really more around similar things to what Alan talked about. If you're going to change a system, you need to kind of decide what's broken about the current system that needs fixing. If I'm going to replace my roof, why do I replace my roof? If it's leaking, that's a good reason. But if the roof is still got years on it and it's not leaking, why would I replace it? And so that for me is a fundamental question. Is our current one person, one vote primary runoff system broken? And I'm not perceiving that there is something broken there that needs to be fixed, particularly if it's going to cost a significant amount of money in order to put in a new system to replace my roof. And so that was a question that I had. The one person, one vote system has been around since the 4th century BC. And it seems to have worked okay for 2,500 years. And some people have tried different systems, and I'm absolutely great with experimentation and trying things. But if we're going to fundamentally alter our system of elections in Eugene, I want to know that it's more than an experiment and that it's something that has a tried and true aspect. And recently I've talked to folks who've said they tried it, it didn't work. I've looked at some information that shows that star voting is also not impervious to monkeying around with. It's similar to the coalition government form that's used in Britain or is used in Israel, where you can get groups together and together they can create voting blocks that can do stuff. It's like dot loading when you do dot voting. And that is possible to do. The candidates can work together and you can create coalitions that can then vote certain ways. So it's not immune. I'm not saying that's necessarily going to happen, but any system in which you put people has the potential to be misused. So to say star voting is somehow superior to one person, one vote because it's impervious to playing with doesn't really bear out. You can play with any system. So I want to make sure that if we're going to look at this, we should. And the last point I wanted to make is the proponents have been saying that they would have qualified for the ballot except this technical thing happened that kept them off. And for me, does that mean that Lane County Elections, whom I'm assuming Lane County Elections were the folks who certified the ballots, is that true? That they either, there was a conspiracy to keep it off the ballot or they're incompetent. And so I'm trying to figure, was it conspiracy or was it incompetence? And I'm not necessarily convinced it was either one. So I could say more, but I don't need a second round.
Okay, I have Mike, then Betty, then Alan for a second round.
Thank you, Mayor. It was a good transition point from Chris. For me, the proponents of this have made the argument, not necessarily that, for at least it was the way I took it, that it wasn't incompetence or corruption, but that in fact, the system that Lane County uses for judging the process of whether an initiative qualifies to be on the ballot is subjective and insufficient. And I got to be honest with you, I kind of agree with them on that. It's left up to very fallible human eyes. Does this signature on this petition slip look like the one that this voter signed who knows how many years ago when they registered to vote? So, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but my signature has evolved over time, I guess is the best way to say that. And if you looked at the same thing I signed when I was in my 20s, I think it would look dramatically different than it does today. So that's left to somebody to look at and say, is this the same person? And in the case of what these folks did, they had notarized affidavits of enough people that yes, in fact, they had signed that and it is their signature and they were disqualified. And so that shows a system whose subjectivity has some problems to it and can result in a consequence that we may not want. So that's where I'm stuck, is that it doesn't seem fair to me that they were subject to the rules as everyone else is, but that it was subjective in nature and not black and white. So I'm very much of two minds about whether or not to proceed and put that on the ballot. There is an aspect of it that when it comes to if it is on the ballot, how would I vote? That actually concerns me quite a lot. I've in my professional life, in my previous professional life, I had the ability to work with about 60 political campaigns, aside from the 5 of my own. So I'm somewhat of an expert on how campaigns operate, and I think this will result in some of the most negative campaigning ever heard of in the history of ever, because the only thing that you can do effectively with this type of system is get people to score your opponents lower. And that's going to result in some very, very negative campaigning, in my opinion. And that concerns me about this system. Thank you.
Okay, Betty.
Can I just add something regarding some of the questions that are coming up, Councilor Clark, as well as some other folks? There is, I think you all know, there's current litigation pending over the process that was used for this initiative process. The STAR petitioners did file a suit against the city and the county. The motions that are the dispositive motions in this case, I think, are due at the end of August. If there is an interest to hear kind of what the issues are being presented in that case, as well as what the legal positions are that the city will be taking, we certainly can schedule an executive session to have that discussion, if that would be something that the council would like to hear about.
I'd very much like to hear that, yes.
Okay, we can get that on the agenda.
Okay,
I would like to hear that too.
Oh, good. Betty, you're up.
Okay, I don't think that was a vote for 2 people to say they'd like to hear that, but as for what's broken, we have people campaigning for almost a full year, and I think that is broken. When for a city council or mayor position, you're campaigning for a year the way it is now, and it is just, it's too much. I think that's broken, and I'm glad Mike said that about the signatures. That happened. I learned fairly fast that you have to get a lot more signatures to get on the ballot than the 25, because I had people I knew were disqualified when I had them marked out. And I spoke to them, people who've always voted, and their signatures weren't accepted. So you never know whose signatures are accepted or how that happens. It isn't infallible. As for people education, I think the voters in Eugene are exceptionally well educated and able to understand something like star voting. In Illinois, the whole state used to have cumulative voting for the legislature. and it worked all right. There were some people who didn't like it, and they don't have it anymore, but it worked. And people were able to figure it out. When I was, you used to have to be 21 to vote. When I was 21, I was able to figure it out. And all my cohorts were, it was a different way, but I don't think there's any problem with that. And I thought this would just be simple. We'll let the people vote. We act as if we're deciding whether it will happen or not, and we're not deciding that. Anybody here who wants to work against it can work against it. And the citizens can work against it if they want to. I can't imagine why, but they can. And people can work for it. And it's democracy. Let people vote. As for city putting something on the ballot, we did put something on the ballot about 15 years ago, thinking it would turn out the way the council majority wanted it to. It did not. It turned out the way I wanted it to, but the city has done that before. And it is possible, and it's just letting the citizens decide whether they want it or not. There are people who have worked really hard for this, and let them do their campaign. We don't have to campaign against them or for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan, another round.
Yeah, maybe that information that the city attorney was talking about can come to us in the form of a memo. I don't know that we need to spend a work session talking about it. I think Jennifer said it really well. For us to put this on the ballot, and Chris said the same thing, so did Mike, put this on the ballot, we need to find that the process and the rules are flawed and in error. And I can't make that determination right now. I don't think it's fair for the folks to ask us to put this on the ballot and make that determination on a long-standing process. And this isn't the first time someone was denied because they didn't get enough signatures. I would need a lot more information to make that determination. And then even if we did make that determination, that's not even in our lane. It's the state rule and it's administered by the county, not the city. So I think Jennifer is correct in saying that putting it on the ballot is not neutral. It would be perceived as tacit approval of this. So without a lot more investigation into this and other options, I would not want to do that. And I would suggest that if the petitioners have a problem with the process, they go to the right venue to deal with that, which is at the county, at the state level, and try to get that reform done. We're in an era of reform. Maybe it'll work. So I think that I'm going to vote for the option of take no action at this point.
Hey, Claire, second round.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a question for staff because Betty raised the challenge of lengthy campaigning. Would we have the option to eliminate our primary and just have a single round of voting for city council seats? Mayor?
I don't see Brooke unmuting, so I'll go ahead and jump in. We can't definitively say the research we did, we didn't find anything that prohibited it. The statutes, the state constitution, all that, they're not written in a manner that contemplates star voting. It's written in a manner, the statutes refer to primaries and generals, it refers to all that. Whether there's not something that we saw based on the work my office did that straight up would prohibit what this proposes. Ultimately, whether or not it is a voting system that the Secretary of State, who is the one that controls all the elections in Oregon, thinks is permissible under the Oregon Constitution and statute, would have to be decided after if the electors in fact approve it. We know that the Oregon Supreme Court won't proactively look at a proposal unless and until it is approved by the voters. So based on what we saw, we were comfortable saying we didn't see anything that outright prohibited it for sure, but it also is just generally not contemplated by the manner in which the statutes are written.
Okay. And I guess I was just asking, like, absent moving to star voting, would we have the authority to say, we're just going to have one-time ballot and whoever gets the most votes wins?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your.
That's okay. Your information was helpful too.
I actually think the answer is generally the same in that it would be a similar type of proposal where we're changing what is kind of generally contemplated by the statutes. I think, yes, that could be a same type of a charter amendment where we, because our charter does currently provide for the system that we use now. So equally, that would be the same type of process. And so, yes, that proposal could be put to the electors, and then the same questions that I raised about star voting would come up again. Like, is that okay under does the Secretary of State think that's an acceptable system in Oregon? Gotcha.
Okay, I mean, I'm just thinking if one of the problems we're trying to solve is too long, a campaign season, then we have other means that we could employ besides completely changing and adopting a new voting system. And then I just want to confirm, I think I saw 4 counselors who thought your suggestion of an executive session about the lawsuit would be helpful. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
I have Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm sorry. I had to step away for a minute because I had a family deal to deal with, but so I missed a section of this conversation. But my thoughts on this I'm pretty clear on this. I think that we need to at least let the voters have the opportunity to have a say on this, and decide whether or not, based on a campaign between now and the November election, whether they assess if this is an appropriate way to go to change our system or not. And, I think all of the ifs and whens and buts come into play after the election. I mean, if people say that they're not in favor of changing the system, then the point is moot. If they do, then we've got some work to do after an affirmative vote, for star voting. And I think that we all have opinions on this now, but I think that the real work would come into play, if this ballot measure would be passed. And so I just want to reserve judgment until we really hear from the community, in addition to the emails that we've received over the last few days and actually over the last few months. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, Emily.
Thank you. I really like star voting. I realize it's new and different. I don't like it that it would cost so much money, but we don't know that for sure. I last time had to run for a runoff, and I am this time. So I certainly would like to not do that. I'm also going to point out that in those letters where we're told that we'll be voted out of office, I'm the only one left that you can do that with. I worry about split votes. I think this is fairer. And due to the auditor elections, where we put another measure on there, I don't have a problem putting this one on for people to decide. Thank you.
I just thank you all. I have just a one or two questions also, and it has to do with the county's role here. Am I right that I mean, what are the implications for the county themselves if we do this in terms of county elections?
Those elections, assuming that it only passed in Eugene, their elections would proceed as they normally would. That's where it gets a little bit complicated because they typically would administer our process alongside that. So there are some unanswered questions in terms of the manner in which we would engage with them to execute this, implement this. But if it weren't to pass for them, one could assume that their current process exists, and this would either be supplemented, in the city of Eugene with this system. Does that help to answer that question?
Yes.
Well, and Mayor, the state statute provides that it is the county that provides the ballots. It is the county that prints them and provides them. So we're not in a position to say, we'll just handle it. That's the statutes don't allow for that. So we will have to partner with the county on how this gets implemented. It's not within the current statutory construct that we can just go on our own and produce and just handle this piece of it ourselves.
And am I right in understanding that the Star Voting folks are also doing initiatives to the county, to have the county do this, implement Star Voting? Is that not right? Did they have an initiative drive underway?
Correct.
And that would be for the county to put this on the ballot, or that would be for the county to implement? That
would be for the county to implement within the county. Beth, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I think their initiative collection process is supposed to wrap up in July. So we would know more at the end of July if that had succeeded or not.
Okay. Okay, there are just some implications, it seems to me, also with our relationship with the county, and if we're both doing this together, it feels like it's a more straightforward process, and possibly would reduce the cost for both of us because we'd be sharing in that combined piece. So there's a part of me that thinks, well, let's see how they do with the county, get the initiative, get the county on board, then maybe we have time to actually work with the county together on this option. I have Greg and Alan for another round.
So you may correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think the cost would be a one-time cost for us. It would not necessarily be an ongoing cost. Could maybe the city manager or the city attorney clarify that? Did you hear me?
Yeah, no, I heard you. I didn't do the research on the costing piece, so I was hoping Brooke was going to answer that.
Yeah, so there certainly would be a lot more upfront costs in terms of the development of the software and the public education campaign. It's a little unclear if the county, if the city or the county were to require that the city used a separate ballot, that could incur additional costs. So there's some questions about what would be ongoing versus what would be one time. Similarly with the software costs, if we were the only jurisdiction implementing it, it might be that we would be required to continue to pay the software costs, which otherwise the county would be paying if we were utilizing their system. So those are some of the things that might be ongoing. And then, yeah, I guess that covers it at this point.
And the point that I would like to make in terms of, supporting Star Voting is I think that this system would present a more representative way of reflecting what the will of the voters are, and give people an opportunity to have more choice and be able to support the candidates that they really would like to see in elective office. You know, I think that that's one of the flaws with the system now, is that it really doesn't reflect what I think, you know, voters want to have in terms of supporting, you know, maybe one or more choices, you know, for elected office, for elected officials, than we do right now. So, you know, I really strongly would like to allow the voters to have the opportunity to have a significant discourse on this, and you know, be able to vote whether they think that this is a good idea or not. I don't think it hurts us either way. In fact, I think it helps us, and it helps for more representative democracy.
All right, I have two things. Both Betty and Alan have asked for a third round. We have another item of business which we need to get to. So I'm hoping Betty and Alan, if you really need to speak, we can make it a lightning round so we can resolve this and go on to the second agenda item. So Betty, Alan first and then Betty.
Yeah, mine's real quick. I'm assuming that if the county has one set of rules and does the election this way, and the city has a completely different system with our own software, our own ballots that get mailed out, all that, the county's not going to pay for that difference. That would be an ongoing cost that the city would bear. And that's my working assumption. The county wouldn't just necessarily say, okay, you guys will pick up that tab when it could be substantially increasing cost to them. And I don't think they're prepared to do that, for one, but and make it a lot more complicated for the county to do what they're doing. So I'm assuming the ongoing costs would be borne by the city if only the city of Eugene were doing this. Is that correct, Brooke?
That seems to be a possibility with this. Again, it could change in the future were the county to adopt the star voting system at a later date. So that might impact what the ongoing costs might look like. But yeah, I think we have to, at least as presented here, we were trying to shed light on what those potential costs might be. I just wanted to kind of highlight that one of the asks in this work session that we were trying to address here was the question about whether ending the primary system would save taxpayer dollars. So we were just trying to give you a general sense of what that would look like and whether or not it might save taxpayer dollars.
Okay, Betty.
Thank you, and I'll be really quick. I almost always am. I want to say two things. Greg made really good points, but the main thing is we're not here today to decide whether there should be star voting or not, or whether we're for it or not. We're here to decide whether to let the public say what they think. Let them campaign, let them vote, and then we will find a way to abide by what the public say. Thank you.
Okay, we have three possible motions to put on the table. And it is up to you, Council President. You can ask for another work session or direct to go forward.
I move to direct the city manager to return on July 13th, 2020 with a resolution calling a city election on November 3rd, 2020 for the purpose of referring to the legal electors of Eugene, a charter amendment that elects the mayor and councilors using the score then automatic runoff star voting method.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Oh, got a
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. All right. All in favor. Oh, wait. Councilor Surratt, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I will only vote for this motion if it includes the addition of cost estimates for implementation, one-time costs, ongoing costs, and as well as cost savings. Without that addition to the motion, I'll vote against.
I'm confused as to what that means. We would put that into the election, or that would be information we'd make sure people had before the election?
No, it would have to be part of the ballot measure.
Can I need some more information on that? What would the ballot measure say?
I mean, you, as your resolution referring it to the electors, you could have provisions within your resolution saying that your referral would need to include that within the ballot title. I mean, I could think of some options for you. I don't anticipate, I mean, this would just be, right now what you have in front of you is the charter amendment that they proposed. There, you wouldn't have the cost estimates within the charter amendment itself. So it would really be, as part of your resolution referring it, say the referral, and that information has to be included as part of the ballot title or something like that.
I'll accept that. Second, accept it.
Do we have a second?
Okay, to get it passed, but I think that'll cost a lot of money, but okay.
All right. So all in favor of the motion as amended?
Councilor Clark has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike.
I was just going to recommend that the language there might be to include fiscal impact in the ballot title. So if I understood that correctly, we're directing the manager to return with the final version before we vote on it. Do I have that right?
That's correct. What we'd bring back to you is the resolution, and I'll use the example, your like most recent parks and bond referral. You
Right.
do that by resolution. That's what we'd be bringing back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so all in favor of this resolution as amended, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, all opposed? 1, 2. All right, it passes. And so we have direction on that. It'll come back to us. Thank you so much. It was a good discussion. And we now will move on to our second item of business, which is an update on the local option, the library local option levy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to have Will jump in for time reasons.
Thank you very much. Let me just go ahead and share the screen here. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Eugene Library Levy Renewal Options. Back in January, we shared with you the year 3 levy report to our community. We were excited to share with you all the things we were doing and were asked to bring some levy proposal options going forward. Things have changed quite a bit since we last spoke on January 27th, which I know sounds like forever ago. While the doors to our physical buildings are currently closed, our library has never stopped being open and of service to the community. Our focus at this time has been to open our virtual doors as wide as possible. I want to share with you what our library is doing right now, 1, so you can share with your constituents of all the great things our library is doing to serve its community, as well as 2, inform your decisions concerning renewal options. As mentioned, we're working on getting our virtual doors as wide open as possible. That's kind of been our mantra at the moment, eliminating any obstacles and offering as much access as possible to support our community. One thing of note would be we've actually taken over 3,400 phone calls from our patrons during this closure. That's over 1,100 phone calls per month from our patrons. We've also continued with our chat service during this time. Information access has never been so vital, so we want to make sure certain folks who don't have internet access or other sources of information contact us. For example, accessing up-to-date city and county health information is essential since it can literally mean the difference between life and death. These phone calls have changed in certain ways. They aren't just one moment or asking for a unique fact. Sometimes they're just looking about for a connection. At the beginning of this closure, we had one of our patrons reach out to us and call us back a number of times the same day. Our caring library staff took the time to speak with that individual and really made them feel heard and less alone during this difficult time, connecting them with the resources needed going forward. We are also helping people get access to their devices. This is a time when people are asked to do more with their technology than ever before, to stretch their technological proficiencies. It not only entails getting people onto the device and then getting them onto hoopla.com or whatever resource they're looking for, it's about doing that all virtually without someone or anything in front of you. Going that extra mile to support our community is what our library is all about. We've also extended due dates on material, card expiration dates, and eliminated blocks of service due to fines. It's absolutely paramount that we offer as much access as possible to support our community. The last thing we want people to worry about at this time is if their book is due or if their card expires. What we really want to do is push that forward so it doesn't weigh on people's minds. So we've eliminated that going forward until September because we really wanted to make sure that people felt comfortable going out. If they want to stay in and hold on to those items, because everyone has different levels of safety, we wanted to make sure the last thing people would have to worry about again was returning that book. This was fundamental for us to make sure that we open our virtual doors as much as possible to meet the community members where they're at. Speaking of access, we've made it so that card registration is offered over the phone. Any Eugene area individual can actually register for a free virtual card right now on the phone that they can get any of the plethora of virtual resources our library has to offer. The reason we did that is primarily because we truly want to significantly provide help to the students in our community. We know it's hard to be a student in general, but even more so in the current situation. And we really want to assist folks as they navigate what education looks like right now. We've also made over 700 cards during this time, adding to our library's 110,000 active cardholder count, which is 63% of Eugene residents have an active library card. This new card registration shows that people are constantly and consistently finding new reasons to access the library and utilize its resources. People need new and different services that they might not get at any other time. We've also seen our e-resources go up by 70%. To tell you a little bit more about what e-resources are, that would be if you normally check something out, the physical item you would check out would now be a virtual item. So instead of book, we're talking about ebooks. Audiobooks, we're talking about e-audiobooks. DVDs, now we're talking about streaming movies. And this usage has actually gone up over 70%, 73 and a third to be specific, but who's counting? We are. During this time as compared to May 2019. While more granular and thus harder to measure, we've also seen our online resources for education go up during this time. That would be things you normally see like scholarly search engines to make sure students are getting properly vetted resources as they do research and work on papers. And that also includes educational resources like BrainFuse, where students and parents have access to flashcards, quizzes, live tutoring, and feedback on writing assignments. It also includes skill development like lynda.com, which is a suite of self-paced and self-guided tutorials to learn software, creative and business skills to achieve personal and professional goals. In addition, research access such as Ancestry.com, which focuses on genealogy, is available for the first time off-site and for home library use. And these are just a small sample. There are so many more that we are on offer here at our library. Not only that, we haven't stopped offering virtual programs at this time, having moved a number of programs over our virtual platform. Stay-at-home story times, sing-alongs, offering parental education resources like book lists, an online book club for tweens, and a youth theater program are just a sampling of what we're doing. While the new virtual resources are mostly aimed at youth services, our library has also offered a Facebook Reader's Advisory, helping folks find their next great book or movie or whatever resource in EPL's e-collection that they can access right now. There is still so much the library is currently doing for you and our community. I'm also proud to share with you our library will start whole delivery starting June 15th, where people can put hold on items and make an appointment to get those items at all 3 of our locations. We're also offering returns at our downtown location, where staff have the needed space to quarantine those items to ensure the safety of our community and our staff. When people pick up a hold, they can feel comfortable and confident knowing that the material they have are safe as possible to use. As you can see, we've really reimagined all our resources, and we will continue to reimagine how we deliver our resources to our community. We have pivoted and will continue to do so for all the ways we serve our community needs at this time. As we move forward, we're going to be looking at how we continue to evolve all our library's resources, because we know there are going to be some possible hard times ahead of us as our community recovers. We know that the library is going to be a place that people use more and more because library use traditionally goes up during recessions and other difficult times. People will need to lean harder upon free, dynamic, and responsive community resources, particularly those our library has to offer. I would like to share with you now 3 different options we have for library levy renewal. These options build on each other, and they're all built off the time-tested and proven model of programs and services, more hours and access, and more materials and technology. As an overview of the current levy, to see where we're at right now, our current tax levy rate is 0.17, meaning for every $1,000 of property value, a house pays 17 cents tax. The average tax rate per home, per household, not per individual, per year is $36, and the total levy is $2.7 million. This is a broad overview of what we're currently doing, so you know how to compare and contrast options going forward. Our first option is maintaining. In comparison to the previous levies numbers, it's $2.85 million per year with a tax rate of $37 per home per year. Again, not per individual, per household. And the tax rate has actually gone down from 0.17 to 0.15, making it actually 2 less cents than it has been before. This would be about maintaining the current level of service our community has come to appreciate and expect for a library, which would include more hours and access. Those are 22 hours per week each week at our Bethel location, 22 hours per week each week at our Sheldon location, and 3 weekend hours per week each week at our downtown location. This is a total of 47 extra hours per week of open library access, which comes to a total of 2,444 hours per year. That is an incredible amount of access which the library wants to maintain. And it's really critical that people are able to get to the library to utilize these resources going forward. We also want to maintain the programs we have, the high-level, free, enriching programs that everyone in our community has access to. These are things like early literacy, story times, the outreach we're doing to help support that important initiative. We know this year there will be more summer slide, which is the term for when students typically lose their important literacy skills they have built up during the school year. This slide will be compounded due to students having to school from home during the closure, which is less than an ideal situation. Those important library resources would also look like workforce development, so folks can get back out there and thrive with new skills and support they've received from our library in order to once again find employment. Also, small business resources in which folks may be looking at starting a small business or reimagining how they do business, and they can really get those resources they desperately need. We're also focusing on materials and technology, meaning that we'll continue to get books faster as we know people at these times want and need more reading material and other resources our library provides. Whether to help them pass the time to build new skills and so on, we want to continue to offer these high levels of material access so we can have shorter wait times for these valuable materials. We also want to maintain our Maker Hub access, which allows folks to have access to technology they wouldn't be able to have without our library. A number of resources provided in the hub are cutting edge, and we want to continually update those resources so folks can avail themselves of the latest and greatest so they can be sure they're learning the most cutting edge approach. And also our Maker Van. We're able to get out into the community to share Maker material and perform outreach in general. That sums up the maintain option, which is what it kind of sounds like, where we maintain the high level of service the community comes to expect from our library. Our second option is maintain and recover. The tax rate for this option would be 0.17, again, per $1,000 of property value, which is currently what the current rate is of the levy in place is. We would also work out to $42 per home per year and a total of $3.18 million per year. As we look forward, going to maintain and recover includes everything from option one, meaning we would do all the things in the option one: open hours, the high level of programming, the materials and technology. In addition to that, this option would help our library pivot during these times to meet the changing needs of our community. Services will continue to change, so we need to reimagine those services on an ongoing basis. It isn't just one reimagination, but instead reimagining library services over and over again, because our community's problems and issues that will inevitably rise from this will continually change. We intend to keep finding new and different ways to serve those community needs. For example, we want to talk about outreach. It's really important to reach out to people in the community because they might not be able to come to the building because access to the building may be more limited. The library is a community concept and not just a building. Libraries are about equitable information access. And that concept and that access, I believe, is even more imperative now. So while it's currently closed, and we may have to limit the numbers based on government phase recommendations, we need to find a way to bring those services out in the community, to meet people where they're at, to satisfy those critical needs. Bringing the maker van out in the community, book bikes, being able to do deposit collections, all sorts of things like that are on our minds right now. For example, we recognize that the digital divide is particularly critical right now. Before, the internet was nice to have, but now internet access is essential and becoming even more necessary going forward. To go to school, to go to work, to connect, to simply as much as connecting with family and friends. All those things inhibit people from fully participating in our society today, living up to their best expectations and to be the best selves they can be. We know that the faster our library can pivot, the quicker and easier our community's recovery will be. This option will maintain the high level of service the community expects from our library, as well as assist our community to recover. The third option is to maintain, recover, and grow. This option would entail $3.46 million per year with a tax rate of 19 cents for an average of $45 per home per year. For this option, we would be setting aside $500,000 per year to help us get up to that fourth floor. The library is only on 3 of the floors, with ISD and finance currently on the 4th floor of the building. The $500,000 per year would allow for operational expenses going forward and the relocation of folks on the 4th floor. We think that the community will continue to grow even during a recovery. Eugene is a very livable and wonderful community to belong to, which I have found out firsthand. Library needs will continue to grow as well, along with recession and potential population increase. The library's resources were already stretched pretty heavily, especially as regard to space considerations, previous to the constraints of physical distancing. To meet that demand of services, putting money aside for the 4th floor expansion is a smart investment for the growth of our community. Here's a snapshot of all the levy-related numbers we just went through, we just previously talked about, including at the top current levy amounts with the 3 options listed below, so you can compare and contrast those in one simple area. I also wanted to note, while you're looking at this, all the numbers for the options are estimates. All 3 of these options come with accountability and transparency, and that's something we're really committed to. We will continue to work with our library advisory board, keeping them apprised of our progress along the way. All the funds are put in a separate account, so it is clear that everything we are spending goes exactly towards what we say would go. Accountability will also include annual reports to the City Council regarding levy spending and performance measures. We want to show that what we've promised is what we will follow through, as we've done in the past, and we will continue to be good stewards of our community's support for us. Timelines for decisions. In order to place the measure on the November 2020 ballot, the Council must act by July 27. To place this measure on the May 2021 ballot, the Council must act by February 8th. This concludes the levy option presentation, and I'd like to take any feedback and questions at this time.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of great information, and it is inspiring, the work that you do through this COVID crisis. I really think you've helped people stay together and stay connected and help families. So thank you very much. It's excellent work. And I have Claire in the queue. So Claire, why don't you take it away?
Thank you. Thank you, Will. Sorry you can't see me. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here and giving us this great update. I'm just curious, in terms of the choices you're making to recommend an option 2 versus an option 3, why not choose to have option 2 be to expand to the 4th floor and related ongoing costs versus what you've presented here in terms of those different options?
I think for us, the community recovery is really our priority. It's really important for us in our mind to be able to give the community those resources they need so they can help recover. So recovery for us is really the focus, because we know in order for us to truly grow, to get up to that 3rd option, to maintain, recover, and grow, we really want to be able to help the community recover first. And I think that's foremost, reimagine those services, getting those library services in folks' hands as soon as possible and quickly as possible so folks can be able to recover. And we really want to do that in a thoughtful way. And I think that will help our community. We've prioritized that because we believe that will help our community the most, is reimagining those services. And so that's why we've elected to really go with that. And they kind of build on each other, kind of prioritizing what we think the services the community will need going forward.
Great, thanks. That's very helpful.
Great question. Thank you very much.
Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the presentation. Well, that was very well done. My concern with this is that the library levy was brought to us in the first place as a means by which we add extra services to the library, above and beyond, things that we thought and the community thought in its response that we needed to provide that were above and beyond the basic services that we were already providing. And thus, this is a way to do it where we ask obviously for a little bit more, but we think the community would make that decision. Since then, we've also added recreation, cultural services, parks levy. We've added the, parks levy and bond. We've added with the payroll tax, essentially what amounts to a police levy. It seems to me like we're heading in a direction to farm out all of our services, our core service levels, to extra particular levies. And instead of, as was a concerted effort years ago, 8-9 years ago, to keep everything on budget and competing one with another so that we could balance our budget well and do it within our means. We're now heading into a time where budgets are going to be constrained, where we're going to have challenging economic times, just like everybody who lives here. As a city, we're going to have to make some difficult choices in the future. And there's no discussion here of eliminating the library levy or bringing it back onto budget, or whether or not we can afford to continue having extras, which is what this was brought forward for in the first place. What kind of cuts are we going to require because of the loss of funds from people being out of work and everything else? And how should we be having this conversation in context? That's the problem I'm having with this. And I'm one of the biggest supporters of the library there is in town. I go to the library sale every year. I have been a supporter for a very long time, but within the context of the fact that we have other priorities. And I'm rather hoping we can have further conversation of library service levels within the context of other services that we need to provide in our total budget. Thank you.
Lucy, I can't hear you.
Thought I was unmuted. I
Happens all the
don't
time.
see anyone else in the queue. I don't know. Betty, did you raise a hand and I missed it? Just following on Mike's comments, I hear that we are heading towards tough times. I think we also are recognizing how fundamental the library is and the services provided by the library in terms of helping individual families and our community actually sustain themselves and recover in this time. And so it doesn't feel like an extra. It feels like a kind of an essential service that we're providing. And unfortunately, we're providing it outside the scope of our general fund resources. We're imposing a levy because we don't have those resources, but it's not because it's extra, and it feels more essential all the time. So I agree with Mike. We're going to be faced with a lot of hard choices, but I would just change the characterization of this a little. So Mike, you've already had a turn. I'm going to let Emily and Chris go, and then I'll give you a second round. Take it away, Emily.
Thank you. I love the library. It's really important. And I remember the last levy, I was against it because it feels like the library is such an essential service. It should be part of our general fund. And my comment then was, how can we have a levy that will take, our library was somewhere in the top 10%, up another percentage or 3 when we have such a big homeless problem. And here we are 4 years later, our library is shut, but it's fantastic. I love it. I love the things it's doing. And ever since I saw those maker rooms, I really want to get the fourth floor people somewhere else and have that fourth floor. And I think right now, well, our household budgets are tight. It's a great way for people to have a place to go and do things. And it's a way to get job experience and try out your new ideas. But I don't think it's the right time. We keep talking about hard choices, and I think this is possibly one of them. So I want the big bucks, but I can't really afford it. Maybe we could figure out how to keep things the way they are without a levy for a year and see what else comes up and how it happens. I really want the library, and I'm really concerned about our money with recovery. Thanks.
Okay, I have Chris and then Mike for another round.
This was a great presentation, and I think I supported the library levy the last time because it was important to try to enhance those services, and we were really trying to react to during the recession the conversations about closing down branch libraries and kind of the effect that created on the community. So yeah, it's a very important thing to do. But I think the point that we keep avoiding is we cannot link the money we have to spend with priorities that we have set. When I first got on the city council 16 years ago, we went to a goal setting session, and I proposed that we somehow link our spending with the budget with priorities that we would establish, and I lost 7-1 because the city council is reluctant as a body to set priorities. Somebody will be unhappy that they weren't the priority. So consequently, everything is a priority, even though we can't afford it. And this has come up over and over and over again. The last time we had a goal setting session, we couldn't bring ourselves to use the word priority. We had to talk about focus areas and other kinds of things because we cannot make priorities because we don't want to indicate that we would prioritize one spending over another spending. And that's a financially untenable position for us. And it's where we are right now. So, Will, this isn't your problem. It's not an issue just with the library. It's an issue with the community that goes into a budgeting process and says, we want to pay for everything because it's all important and it's all equal, and the money's simply not there to do it. And somehow we have to be able to bring ourselves to say, we've got a limited amount of money, and these are the things we're going to devote that money to. And we kind of do it. We do it through the back door. The city manager does an incredible job of trying to do it in a way that doesn't look like priorities, but we have never really supported that process because we keep trying to figure out how to say everything's important and then figure out how to not pay for it or to always pay for it. So that's why we have to have all these sidebars, levies or payroll taxes or other things, because there's not enough money to make everything a priority. So we have to talk about what other ways we can do that. And it's a frustration because good management is linking the money you spend to the priorities you establish. That's just good business. And we seem to have a difficult time doing that. And I would like for us to have a planning session, have a retreat, sit down and look at our goals and say, this is what we will spend our money on as a matter of policy, not because the city manager figured out how to do it.
Okay, Mike, another round.
Thank you, Mayor. I haven't been able to say this for a while, so I really want to say it very loudly. I agree with Chris entirely in every word that he said. I can remember the multiple rounds of debates I had with Alan when we first started about 14 years ago, me asking for priority setting sessions and Alan making a very valid point that how we decide to spend our money is our priority setting. And I understood that at the time. But I agree with Chris that we need to do this, especially as it pertains to the fact that we're going to have very difficult financial times ahead of us. And it will, I believe it will help us be very, very clear about our priorities. And I put my hand up in the first place because I appreciate the mayor's statement very much, but I wouldn't want to be unclear in what my comments were about. I absolutely believe that the library is a critical service. It's critical to many, many members of our community, and I would never infer that the library or its services weren't critical. What I'm suggesting was the levy was extra. And when we decided and talked about it out loud on purpose 4 years ago, 5 years, whatever it was, that we brought it forward as extra. And my point was, I don't know if we can afford extra in the face of the other priorities the city has, much like what Chris said. And I think we ought to be having that conversation instead of which levy to assume we're putting forward. Thank you.
Manager, do you want to speak to some of these comments?
I do, because I'm picking up on sort of the vibe, but not getting real clear direction. So I just want to say a couple of things, because you've raised some points that we've been talking about internally too, which is, and it's going to be true of all of our services where we have levies that are doing kind of the extra, which is really, you know, things that our community said, we actually want more services in this area and we're willing to pay for that. How does that work when we're in a general fund potential reduction scenario where we could be cutting, you know, $7+ million over the next 3 years? And in that case, you know, library is a general fund service. So you have sort of this extra money and then you have the base money, and how do those things work together? So I just want to be mindful that, I just want to be really transparent about what not going forward means. So not doing anything in November basically means you have a little bit more time to talk about it and decide if you want to do you would have time during that time to do your goal setting, priority setting, and determine, like, do you want to go forward with this in May? It makes it a tighter timeline, and it doesn't provide as much certainty to our team, but it would allow you to do that work. So I'm struggling to understand whether you're not wanting to do it at all, or whether your messages to us right now are really like, we don't want to do any more. And that would be helpful to have, like, you want us to come back with more information before this July 27th deadline on a maintain, so you at least understand what the implications of not doing that are? Or would you rather we just, let's pick this up in a planning session and rediscuss it in May?
Okay, I have Claire raising her hand. And Renee, did you want to speak to this? Did you want to speak first, or let?
Counselor Syrat could go, and then I'll just add a couple of things to what Sarah talked about.
Okay, great. All right, Claire.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate Chris and Mike's comments. It is frustrating to not feel like we can fund what seems like a basic service or part of the basic service from our general fund, and that should be our goal. You know, if we were not facing the impending cuts due to the economic recession we're in, you know, I would be asking staff to look at, can we absorb the Bethel and Sheldon Branch Library hours and the weekend hours back into the general fund and have a levy on the ballot that does actually address extras. Because I don't see our branch libraries as extras. I do see them as kind of a main part of our system. But given that we're, you know, not able to have that luxury, you know, my feeling right now is putting out the option 1 for a vote would make the most sense to me, and not so maintain, basically, not try to enhance at this point, is what I would be looking for. And I do not need a process session before considering that question.
Okay, Renee.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think Councilor Syret, any direction that we can get on which way we should go and prepare for would be very helpful today. As you know, if we do decide to wait until May, services technically would end in July. We have about 21 FTE tied to the levy today. And so as much forward planning as we can get would be helpful on how we're moving forward. And then also just a little history. The levy was a result of budget reductions, and we chose to put it out to vote, not necessarily as an enhancement. Most of the services were continuation of services that we were providing prior to the recession. And so just that small point. And they have done an awesome job. This team of library staff have knocked it out of the park for the last 4 years doing this and continue to be very dedicated to serving the community. So as much direction as we could get today would be helpful, I think, as we move forward.
Jennifer.
Thank you. So Renee wanted to hear more from us, so I'm trying to contribute to that. I also agree that at this point, my preference would be to go with the maintain the option 1 on our sheet here. I think it's appropriate to ask the voters, this is what we've been doing. This is the level of service we've been providing. And is that something you want to continue to support into the future or not? I think that's completely appropriate to do. I would love to go with the option 2 that has recover options, but I'm not sure that's appropriate at this time, considering our economic environment. And I do appreciate Claire pointing out that we always say the library, but it's really a library system, and our branch libraries and our other programs that don't necessarily happen within the library building are also a part of that system and are also important, and are not necessarily extra. They're just part of the system that we support. So that would be my feedback.
Okay, I have Alan and then Betty.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I support either option 1 or option 2. I think it's interesting to have a conversation about not wanting to spend money on libraries when we just voted to potentially spend $250,000 on election, plus more than likely a hefty bill for ongoing costs. So I'd lean towards option 2, but I could live with option 1.
Okay, Betty. You're on mute still.
Just hold down your space bar.
I was doing the wrong thing. I think libraries are essential to democracy, and so is voting essential to democracy. But I probably would go for option 1 now. I do remember when we decided probably about 15 years ago that libraries being essential should be a part of the general fund and we should give up the levy. And we did briefly. I don't know who else remembers that, but we made it a part of the general fund, which is where I think it should be. And I do think we need, I would also like to point out that we don't have branch libraries in large parts of the city that I wish we had. If we were going to have a levy, I would like to have branch libraries everywhere. I think they're important to children, especially, and the people who can't get around much. But for now, I think we need a bigger discussion later. But for now, I would vote for option 1. And I do want to know when will the library reopen so I can go to it.
Absolutely. I'll take the question on that one.
Question.
Guidance for reopening libraries last week from the state. So we got some recommendations. They're based off retail. And so our library is working around the clock to kind of make sure that happens. We've always said that to reopen the library in phase 2, which is we're planning on opening. Some libraries are actually planning on still not letting patrons in the building. We think that's an important service. And so we really, really want to get it right. We want to make sure that we are in phase 2 and stay in phase 2. and two, that the library has a plan that can allow for its continue to open long-term. I think the worst thing we could do is open quickly and go really fast and find we didn't have the right PPE, we didn't have the right safety requirements in place. And so when we open up, we really want to make sure we stay open and maintain and be a pillar of support for the community. And so for us, we're really taking that measured, consistent approach along with the rest of the city, so we can really make sure that once the library opens, it can stay open and it can be a service that people can rely upon and lean on heavily during this time, because we know people will continue to get a lot of value on that. So we really want to take a smart, consistent approach, and of course, be able to serve the community to the maximum extent possible as we can safely. And I think that's the big element for us in terms of reopening.
That means not soon, I take it.
You know, I can't comment on soon or not. I do know we've started our curbside service starting here on Monday. So we're excited to get that going. And then we're working around the clock. I don't want to commit to a timeline and then have that fall short. So I don't want to commit to something and then not follow through on it. So again, we're really taking a look at how we can open and stay open and making sure we can get the proper resources. As we know, PPE, sanitizing, things like that, harder to come by these days. And we really want to make sure we do a good job and have a thoughtful approach to that.
Thank you. I wanted one last comment and then we are over time. So take it away, Mike. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Forgive me, but I don't have my iPad with me at the office today. I forgot it. So I don't have the options in front of me. Can you clarify option 1? Does that in fact bring us back something to reconsider in July?
So
is the maker of the motion here?
Let me jump in here, Will, if you might. We have 3 options on level of service, and then there's 2 options, Counselor, for timing, whether the November ballot or the May ballot.
And which has been put on the table? Because I wasn't clear on that.
We haven't made a recommendation.
Okay, and Renee, I just want to say I love you, and you're one of my favorite people in the world, and I would never contradict you, but I still have Connie's presentation where she talked about the new 3D printers and the new maker stations and all the new added services. This wasn't about restore prior to the recession. This was about adding new services. And the question today about whether or not which parts of that can we afford if we have to cut basic services and keep the new stuff. I mean, I think we need a more robust discussion before we just agree to put something on the November ballot. That's my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. That's very fair. What we would want to do based on this conversation is come back in early July for a slightly broader conversation and vetting on what options that would be available to you to consider. So, and then we do have till the end of July if you do choose to go out in November.
Thank you all. It's a kind of a hard conversation, but I would just plant this other thought into the conversation, which is that there's a team in the city that is looking at economic recovery overall, and this is presumably part of that. And so it might help council to sort of have a sense of what that framework looks like also, and how the library fits into that. So, and I think with that, you have what you need, hopefully, Manager. And thank you all for a good conversation. Thank you for an excellent presentation, Will. And we are adjourned.
Thank you.